Hello YouTube and welcome to the channel. Now today's video is going to be an upgrade video. I've been given this JJRC Q60, I can never remember which ones they are. One of the two, JJRC Q model 6x6 truck to upgrade. It's standard out of the box, but we've got a load of bits and pieces here: servo, light kit, little ESC, a selection of 180 motors to replace the 130 that's in there currently, and of course a nice new transmitter and receiver. So that's today's job, fitting that lot to that truck, and I'm going to go through step by step hopefully with you guys what I'm doing so you can see. So without further ado, we'll use a bit of YouTube magic and get it out of the box. Ta-da! There we go, look at that magic. Like I say, it's a bone stock vehicle, so we'll get cracking. I think the first thing I'm going to do is remove all the bodywork so we can get to all the electronics inside. Now normally in these upgrade videos I would do a before sequence. I'm not going to do that this time, because if you want to see what a standard production JJRC 6x6 truck is like, just watch the Mancat and or Hemmet videos that I've done, and that'll give you an indication as to what these are like straight out of the box. What we're really interested in is what they're like after they've been upgraded. So I've taken the cargo bed off, and now we're going to remove the cab. Now it's worth noting that on JJRC Q60, Q61s, to remove the cab there are two screws located inside the bonnet, so you've got to release those and also unplug the lights from the receiver board. So now that we've done that, we are going to remove all the old electronics, including the gearbox, because we're going to put a new 180 motor in it. And so I'll do that and we'll see what we're dealing with. Now when we remove the original electronics, we're left with that sort of an arrangement. Now I've got the micro servo that we're going to be fitting. There is actually two slots cut in the board which the servo sort of sits in like that. There is no servo covering for this, but I have found an MN Models servo cover, and that sort of fits on top like that. It's not it lines up with one of the holes, but one of the holes it misses completely, but we might be able to do something with that. But for clamping the servo in place, I think that's the way we're going to go. And also on the front I've had to remove the original steering linkages, but I do have a spare set of WPL ones, so I'm hoping that when everything's connected up they will pretty much do the job. So we'll put the servo in, connect it all up and see what it's like after. Okay, I've rigged for the time being the steering servo in and connected up the WPL linkages, and we've attached a battery to the electronics, etc. And now we have proportional steering. So after a small fright with regards to the electronics not working, we're slowly making progress. The rear of the battery cover just wants a fixing somehow, but steering. Now that we've got the steering in the rough position, I'm going to move on to the motor and gearbox, because we've got a 180 motor to fit. I think we've got two options. We've got this 180 with the brass gear on the end, or I do have a racing 180 motor here, but I think for the time being I'm going to err on the side of caution, because I know these brass gears can be an absolute pain to get off. So we've got one with a gear on it. I'm going to try that in the gearbox and see how we get on. Now, as perfectly usual with these things, the 130 motor's got a different gear on it than the 180 that's been supplied. So now I've got to try and get that little brass gear off, and in the past I've not had much luck, I must admit, getting them off in one piece. But we'll see how we get on, and it might be looking as though we use the gearless racing 180 motor to try and make our lives a little bit easier. So after much struggling, I've managed to get the brass gear off the old motor and put it on the end of the racing motor. It's not an experience I wish to repeat because it was an absolute pain in the arse. And I have tried it also. It does mesh quite nice with the rest of the gearbox, so I couldn't be happier at this point. So the next job is to trim out the motor and gearbox holder, because the 180 motor comes past that point and interferes with that bit of plastic, so we need to sort of trim that out so it will fit. So that's our next job. Now then, this is pretty much where we're up to. I've utilised the on-off switch at the front. I've soldered that in. I've put the ESC on top of the servo board, and that clears the cab nicely. Motor's in, motor wires are on, connected all up. I've connected up the receiver just to check it all. And I'm installing the rear lights at present. As you can see, they fit nicely onto that aluminium bracket there. Let's put it in for 2 seconds. We've got steering and we've got throttle. So now the bit I find the most tedious is trying to hide all the wiring. So there's a few jobs I need to do because the cab, with the motor being slightly longer, the cab fouls the back of the longer motor, so we've got to sort that out. And we've got to try and shoehorn this MN 7.4 volt battery into the JJRC battery tray. It's almost there, but I think it needs a little bit of a segment cutting out the back. So I shall continue on and check back with you in a bit. So anyway, just a quick update. We want to fit this 7.4 volt MN battery in, and there's not quite enough room under the bonnet. So what I've had to do is just chop a little hole out the back, and that allows the back side of this battery just to slot in, and that fits snugly in the compartment. And also at the back, I've cut a little slot out, and that allows the cab to fit snugly over the motor, and also to clear the bit of wiring that needs to come through the cab. So now I'm going to try and do something with this rat's nest of wires, try and hide them somewhere. I've got a feeling I'm going to try and do it, put them behind the back of the seat here with the receiver. So that's what I'm hoping to do, but I'll let you know in a minute. The cab is back on now. As you can see, the new MN battery lives snugly inside the compartment. Now it just fits in that little hole that we cut in the back. The cab clears the motor with that notch. So all it remains to do is to refit the bed. But again, we're going to have to cut a little notch in the back, similar to the back of the cab, just to clear the motor. So I'll go ahead, do that, and assemble it, and we can take it for a little spin. So there we have our little notch, and I've also put a few little notches on the underside of the frame just to clear the tie wraps that are holding the wiring loom on. And it's now a perfect fit. So there you have it, a fully proportional JJRC truck. A much better all-round package and a much nicer RC to pilot. If you're thinking about doing this yourself, and I strongly recommend that you do, I will leave links in the description to all the bits and pieces I've used throughout the build. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video and you found it of some use and interest, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're feeling that way inclined, hit that subscribe button. I'm close to 500 subscribers now, which I'm absolutely over the moon about, so if you can give me that little bit of a helping hand, that would be brilliant. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you next time.